everyone, and thank you for joining us here on the Recruitment Roundup podcast, which is brought to you by BMS Performance. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, BMS Performance is a specialist sales and marketing recruitment consultancy. For the last 30 years, we've been helping businesses across the UK recruit for vacancies at every level. How you doing, Sam?
I'm all good, Mike. How's everything with you?
All right. Not quite yet on the wind down for Christmas. Still feels like everything's a million miles an hour, doesn't it? But excited to get into this conversation. One that we've spoken about internally, and there's a hot topic of conversation, but one I think that a lot of the sales community talk about, a lot of sales leaders talk about as well, which is a growth mindset. So in this conversation, we're going to talk about why mindset's important. We're going to delve into our opinions on what a fixed mindset is, how that relates to sales, and also how to spot it maybe in the recruitment process, and touch on growth mindset, how to achieve a growth mindset. So hopefully our wisdom and opinions are interesting to the audience. But let's kick it off then, Sam. So I'll ask you the first question. So if we think about mindset, why is having a growth mindset important in the first place? And also, why is it important to be aware of your mindset? Because depending on how you're feeling, things going on outside of work, pressures in work, it's quite easy to slip into a negative mindset without even realising it, isn't it, as well, sometimes?
100%, Mike. It's a really, really good point. And I'll probably start by answering the back end part of your question first, in terms of why is it important to have a really good mindset first, and we'll get into the growth mindset. But I think when I think about myself and mindset, it's all about everything that our reality is a perception of what we think. Really, you will be so amazed as to the amount of things that you could probably tell yourself, and that's what it ends up being. So if you can control your thoughts, and that's within any level of sport or performance, or just like seeing how your day is, if when you just wake up feeling good, all of that little mental switch can affect you in a positive and negative way, and just so many ways. So just the real top people within the world are masters of channeling those thoughts, controlling those thoughts, and having that kind of mindset, is being able to control your mindset, so key.
What's that phrase? I may be correct, I might be slightly incorrect, but be careful of what you say to yourself. You're the only one listening.
Exactly. I absolutely love that.
Is that the right phrase?
Yeah. You're right. Because ultimately, you're the only person who's. I won't hold that one against you if you got it slightly wrong, but I think that's definitely the one.
I'm on the right lines.
You're on the right lines. Because all these things that you tell yourselves, be they positive or negative, these reaffirmations, I believe is a word there, is. You'll be amazed as to what that perception can do for you in a positive or in a negative way. And then going back to the growth mindset and why it's important to have that, I think everyone has talent to a certain level, right? Everyone within the world has talent to a certain level. That's the way I see it. But the importance of a growth mindset is just embracing that you could always get better. It's that appetite for wanting to grow, wanting to learn, wanting that feedback. And that growth mindset for, be it sales or recruitment process, it's just constantly thinking, constantly wanting to evolve, and improve. And it's just so key.
I think as human beings, our brains are wired to the negative, aren't they? Because how we've evolved from being apes, chimpanzees in the jungle, and we've evolved from that. We've constantly been looking for danger and thinking where are the predators, etc. So naturally, we've evolved, I think, and I think studies will show, as being somewhat negative in terms of how the brains are wired. So it's natural for people to fall into a fixed mindset. It's really, really hard for some people, some individuals, to maintain a positive growth mindset all of the time, isn't it? And I think in sales, where people are rejected more than you're accepted, it is an emotional roller coaster. isn't it, at the best of times? So this is why I think you see a lot of people who do fall into a fixed mindset quite easily, because it's all that rejection. I think that's a skill of a top performing salesperson, is to be able to deal with that rejection without slipping into a fixed mindset and remaining positive in the growth mindset space.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that, Mike. And I think also when you think about the world, there's also just so much negativity, right? So, the more you surround yourself with those negative thoughts and that negative energy, it's naturally going to have that hindrance as to how you see things. But, speaking of sales, and I think a real big point that I like to think about is just embracing challenge. And within sales, there is going to be so much adversity that, people come up against. And that could be internal adversity in terms of maybe getting everyone bought in terms of, engaging the different stakeholders that you might deal with internally as well. And then equally externally, when you're dealing with a customer and taking them on that journey, keeping people engaged, facing that constant rejection as well, making a call, being told they're not interested, that embracing that challenge, that growth mindset has to be something that someone has, to do better and, to perform well.
Yeah. So I would say that's a trait of having a growth mindset. So why don't we just sit in this space then for some time for the listeners and for the audience, and talk about what characteristics sales professional needs to have. Or should have, not needs, because people are going to have different opinions, but should have, could have, to demonstrate a growth mindset or to achieve a growth mindset. And then we can talk about maybe how do we identify that within a recruitment process as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think when I think about my first point on this will probably be just, I call it a massive desire to want to learn and continuous learning, right? It's just that that mindset as to, learning from your mistakes, learning when things have gone well, but equally when things have gone bad. It's just that hunger and that.
That's where you learn most, isn't it? Yeah, by far. You can ride the crest of a wave, can't you? And feel like everything's going well. But if you look at this year, I would say the vast majority of salespeople have learned more this year and not earned as much. Because they've not made as much sales than they did last year, where they might have felt more successful. If you reflect on it, like been in a situation where it's been really, really hard, and the growth mindset person would look at that and say, well, it has been a tough year. I've not quite got where I wanted to be, but I'm not going to look at that as failure. I'm looking at that as a learning opportunity.
Yeah, 100%, Mike. There's two different ways to look at it. It's like, I haven't earned what I earned last year, that's fine, but let's learn from that. What could I implement going into, 2024? What points and KPIs and structures could I put in place to make sure that, at the end of next year, I'm smiling, what different things have happened within my marketplace have I learned from? Is it artificial intelligence? Is it how am I embracing all these different tools to become a more rounded sort of sales professional? So yes, that, that ability to learn, but also want to keep up to date with these trends and all these things that are happening in the world, because it's so fast paced as well.
Yeah. So on this point then, in your view, how important is it for someone to be able to separate themselves and identify when they're reacting to things emotionally and making the emotional decisions versus the other side of it, whereas where we're making decisions based on logic, we're taking more time, which for me is kind of where you want to be. So what would you say on that? How important is it in achieving a growth mindset?
Yeah, that's so key, Mike. I think we speak about controlling the controllables a lot. We do speak about controlling the controllables and, focusing on things that you could actively manage and learn from. So, naturally we are going to be, quite emotive people when things don't go our way, but it's important to maybe even write these things down to be like, on reflection, am I being emotional on, is there anything different that I would do? So I think it's just a key point to be able to separate emotion from fact. This has happened and this was a result of why it's happened, and could I do anything differently? Yes. Why could I not? No. So yeah, it's a great point, and it's very key.
And to be fair, what we're not saying is that Top performing salespeople have to be psychopaths in the sense that they don't feel any form of emotion. It's all right to be emotional. It doesn't mean you lack a growth mindset if you don't get a sale and you're disappointed around it. But there's a big difference in accepting that situation and feeling disappointed, and that's a good thing because it shows that you care about what you do, and then being able to apply then the growth mindset to move on from it and look forward versus, well, I was never going to get that anyway. I mean, we'll talk about the fixed mindset separately in a later on in the episode because I want to go through that too. But I think from my view as well, I think people that have a growth mindset and they really work on it, the byproduct of that is that it develops their level of emotional intelligence as well. And that is so crucial in sales, like you said, where you can control the controllables, and accepting that not everything is within your control. But if you've done everything that you can to get yourself to where you need to be and it still doesn't happen, then I'm not actually getting too hung up on that and having to blame everyone else and it was their fault, and the company, in our world, took ages to make an offer to a candidate, etc., etc. Just accepting the situation and being able to compartmentalize and move on. I think that then really helps you in your future development as a salesperson as you progress through your career. The more you're able to look at things emotionally intelligently rather than in a black and white, which I think is a fixed mindset trait, which we'll come on to in a bit, and accept that not everything will go to plan. Perfection doesn't exist, does it? And that's part of having a growth mindset, I think, in my opinion.
I completely agree. That's a fantastic point. I think that dovetails really nicely into a point that I've been thinking about too, and it's just the importance of persistence, and also just having a real grit and a real determination, in terms of wanting to be successful from a sales perspective as well. So I think that growth mindset, really, really helps and really, really separates not just the average performing salespeople from the top performing salespeople. That ability to have just that, that real persistence in terms of, not giving up on a prospect, not giving up on a potential opportunity, having a real grit, a hunger and a desire to, keep on going that extra mile, maybe making that extra call, maybe he's looking to send that extra bit of outreach or email or do that level of research at that time just after work when, the average person's maybe gone home a bit earlier. So it's that persistence, hunger and grit as well, that people have that growth mindset, that makes a difference between, getting above your targets in a week or in a month or in a year. So I think it's a point that I want to speak about in turn.
Yeah, definitely. I think on that point as well, people with a growth mindset generally outperform people with a fixed mindset. And just to your point there, so if you've got someone with a growth mindset and they've been prospecting a particular decision maker in a company for a while, trying different approaches, they may look at that and think, well, either I need to do something differently, so let's seek some advice, again, being open-minded, what else can I do differently, speaking with the manager, or they might think, well, the timing's probably off, so I'll try it again in a couple of months.
Exactly.
The person with the fixed mindset might think, well, they just mustn't want me. They're never going to speak to me. They're not a good client for our business. Move on. And then anyone else that tries to ring that company in the future, I don't bother with them.
Exactly. And how often do we hear about that, Mike? Nothing infuriates me more than that. Like, don't ring them. These guys aren't a good client. They're not a good prospect, and that infuriates me so much. That preconceived notion of ideas is, they're not a good person to want to do business with. All of that is, that's rubbish in my opinion. And I'm really glad that you said that.
Yeah, because it's having that open-minded approach and that ability to sit in the grey area and accept that things change.
Yeah.
It could be, and this is also the growth mindset piece, and that's where it becomes difficult. Was when you're adopting a growth mindset, what you're doing first is you're taking ownership first. So, and this is where it gets hard for some people, because if some people's got quite a large ego, they might find it harder to take ownership of the situation. It doesn't mean that they can never take ownership, but it's a skill that needs to be learned, and it's hard work, because effectively when you're taking ownership, you're always asking yourself, right, what can I do differently in this situation, instead of immediately going to, well, it's not my fault, which is what the fixed mindset is. It's not my fault. So by adopting that, where we're taking ownership first, then we can look inwards and think, right, so what could I have done differently in that situation? Moving forward, what would I have done differently? How would I have approached that? And it could be also, to this point, and to not go off on a tangent too much, if Bob is calling X company and he's not able to get anywhere, then it could be that Bob's got a great growth mindset and he says to Jackie, sorry, I don't know where these names are coming from, Jackie, I might not be the best person to call this. I think they're a good opportunity. I've tried for 6 months, not got anywhere. Why don't you try? This is what I've done. That is demonstrating a growth mindset and thinking, right, I might not be the best person for this, but someone else can, opposed to, no, if I can't get into it, no one else can. No one else can. So it's definitely a form of emotional intelligence. I think also, if you're adopting a growth mindset, even when it's tough, you will feel more balanced. And if you feel more balanced, you're less in a frustrated frame of mind, you're less irate. What does that enable you to do then? Well, it may enable you to sell better. Because people like talking to people that they feel that, engaging, happy. I always say this to people, right? So if you haven't got a dog, right? You come in from work, or you come in from where you've been, and the dog runs up to you, right, it's dead happy to see you. Rarely do you get down. Don't speak to me. Don't sit in your bed. Or whatever, do you? Right. It's the same now. If we're in a mindset, and we'll talk about fixed mindset in a sec, whereby everything's going against us, it's not our fault. Whatever you think, when you engage a prospect or you engage a colleague, you aren't in a great mental space. So that affects how you react in that situation. There's also a topic here which we could do a whole podcast on, which is personal brand. People with a growth mindset generally have a better personal brand because they're seen as more approachable, more open, more willing to take on feedback, great appetite to learn, all the things that you've said. Whereas you tend to find the people with the fixed mindsets and don't possess such a strong personal brand. Doesn't mean you don't have one. And often what you find is people might have a 60% growth mindset and a fixed mindset in relation to other topics, other things. We've all got things we need to work on, haven't we? I'm not 100% growth mindset. I've got areas that I need to work on. I'm sure you'd say the same. That's part of having a growth mindset. But what's important is you try and check yourself and you're thinking, right, am I in this? I'm in a growth mindset here. I'm in a fixed mindset. One little tweak, for example, I've been trying to do is, rather than thinking I have to do this, just change it to I get to do this. It's a little bit of gratitude,
I like that, Mike.
but it's rather than thinking, I've got to call this candidate. I've got to speak to that person. No, I get to do this. Regardless if it's difficult, it's just a slight mental tweak in how you're talking to yourself that helps in, how you approach whatever it is, inside of work, outside of work, etc., etc.
It's one word that makes all the difference, Mike. It's that little positive, and I'm thinking about it myself. Really, it's I get to turn up to work. I get to, it's all those little things, and I think on the back of what you were saying, Mike, it's just that, you're being vulnerable, aren't you? And I'm just trying to think of you're undressing yourself in terms of thinking, what more could I do better? How could I improve? And there is that vulnerability that people don't like to feel, but it's all about maybe embracing that and really taking that on, and that's what really helps that supplement that growth mindset for sure. So really like that point. I like that.
Let's put each other on. Let's put each other on the spot. And this is totally off piece. So what's one question you would ask a candidate in an interview, if you were interviewing someone for you, to assess whether or not they had a growth mindset or not. And you can ask me as well.
It's a great question. I would probably ask them, what are the things that you do to self-improve? Or, yeah, I'll probably go with that one.
So what are the things that you do to self-improve? Yeah, like that. I've got a few spinning around my head, and this is totally off the cuff, but something along the lines of, talk to me about a time where you have recognized that you dealt with the situation poorly. If you were to go back to that, what would you do differently?
Oh, so you've gone full on competency mode. Oh, I like that.
Competency-based question.
Yeah, you've gone on full on competency mode. Yeah, it's really, I'm actually thinking about myself there. I'm like, that's a great question. I think with mine, I would have been hoping to hear things. I'd been hoping to hear, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm reading materials, I'm keeping up to date with industry trends. I'm, those are the things that I'm hoping to. And I suppose in an interview, I would then be assessing how much of this is true. And then on the back of the question that they asked me, I would then follow up and ask them a more, emotive question in terms of just trying to get to, to understand that response. Because sometimes candidates can try it, they'll try and spin around it. But I really like the competency. You really
trying to get into the gritty. But I think this is such an important topic to be assessing candidates against. And I must be totally honest, from experience and speaking to candidates about their interviews, bear in mind I've been doing this 10 years, I can't remember many instances where a candidate's come out of an interview and said, I tell you, they asked me a really good question about how I develop a growth mindset and how I make sure that I, stay out of the black and white area and don't retain preconceived ideas. And it's such an important point, because we all want to work with salespeople that are coachable, take on feedback well, I've got their own aspirations, initiatives, again, open-minded, conscientious, all of those, curious, all those traits that you're looking for. But it's not something that I certainly hear companies interviewing for.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Too much. What have you found?
I think I'd probably echo that sentiment a lot. It's very rare that I will, I've spoken to a candidate following an interview where they've discussed, the importance of, that growth mindset, for sure, because I think it's such a neglected thing. I remember probably within one of my first sort of sales roles, one of the pieces of advice that I got given by one of my former managers was like, look, Sam, you start this job, you're going to meet some guys. Some of these guys have been here for a few years. They've got their way of doing things. Try to learn from them, but also they're going to tell you that this won't work, this won't work. What I want from you to do is to not listen to that and come up with your own plans and always look to want to develop. So I probably had it that way around when I started the job, where I was like, this is my advice to you, stay away from these characters, because it's not going to be good for you to develop as a salesperson, right? So yeah, it's if that was something that would come up in interview, it's very rare that you would. It's
rare to get asked, isn't it? I mean, candidates can give the impression that they have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset based on what they say, so companies can assess from that point. But I think if we're looking for people that want to progress and are coachable, then the type of question that you asked gives you a real sense as to how important is it to that person, in their own management of their career, because self-development, being open-minded, looking to grow, that's a choice for someone. And if the choice is a positive one, then you've got a candidate there that you can really work with. So there's a difference being asked to do something and doing it, and proactively seeking it yourself. And it's that proactive type of individual that you want, that's going to demonstrate a growth mindset.
Yeah, and that's what we want in an organization. Like, we want people that want to learn, that want to consistently develop, that want to be challenged, to reach their true potential, because we can fall into these habits, and that's what any business wants. They want people that will want to improve and be the leaders of tomorrow, and have that all that desire to want to keep on getting better. Let's go into the fixed mindset there, Mike. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, because I don't want to finish on a negative, but I feel like we've spoken about the fixed mindset, the growth mindset a lot. Sorry, so let's touch on the fixed mindset before we finish this off. So I guess we want to talk about how do we, identify a fixed mindset? Because I think if you've been working with someone for a long time, or like you just mentioned, your one of your former employers said, "There's guys here that have been doing this for ages. I'll tell you this is how they do things, etc., etc." So there's a culture, there's a fixed mindset culture going on there, and some companies have a fixed mindset culture and they're not aware of it until it gets pointed out. I'm not trying to be arrogant there and saying that they're not aware of it, but that what you've just said there shows that potentially, they are slightly aware of it, or they're willing to accept it as well. So, for me, a fixed mindset in the sales world comes into the form of the things that we've said. It's seeing challenges as problems. Or can't do that. For example, if we're asked to let's say try something different, a different type of sales tactic, that won't work. That won't work. Now, we've all worked with them people, haven't we? Who are straight away reluctant. I think you can spot a fixed mindset in people who get quite defensive and get the guard up. So they take feedback on, they get defensive, they take things personally. And most people are reasonable, right? So if you don't make a sale, or in our world, if the candidate decides to accept another job, or if the company decides to go with another candidate, then it's not personal against you. It's just recruitment, or it's outside of recruitment. It's just sales. But I think someone that's suffering a fixed mindset, and I say the word suffering because I think people suffer with it. I genuinely think that. I think it is a bit of a problem. It's a bit of a, I wouldn't say illness in the sense of that.
Diagnosed with a fixed mindset.
Yeah, diagnosed with a fixed mindset. Yeah, but I think it is. They would look at that and they would take it personally.
Yeah.
And then what that does then is it builds frustration.
Yeah.
It builds irritability. And what that does then, it rubs off on the people around them.
It appears, yeah.
They then think, oh God, I don't want to talk to that person today because they look like they're about to blow. Yeah. That then affects the morale, then affects the team culture, and you've got this snowballing going on because of someone's fixed mindset, and it can lead to a damaging culture. Now, we're not perfect by any means, and I don't think any business is perfect in the growth fixed mindset standpoint. But another thing that I see is that I've mentioned it before. It's that black and white thinking. It's no, it's this way or it's that way. This will work, that'll work. Now I've tried that, doesn't happen. That company's not great. Never speak to them. They're rubbish. It's that reluctance to change, to take on feedback. And unfortunately, all it does, it stumps someone's development and growth. And as I said earlier on, it can really impact on someone's personal brand. So I think if you're a hiring manager, or you're a leader, or whatever it is that you do, that you're listening to this podcast, whatever your profession is, just looking for these cues can help you identify if someone's got a fixed mindset. So yeah, I've been on a bit of a tangent there, but what do you think?
And obviously from a sales perspective, and I'm just thinking about this out loud, I mean, economic situations change, like our circumstances change. And by that, Mike, I just mean, maybe our pricing has been the same for the past sort of 5-year period. Maybe the way we've provided servicing to our customers has been done a certain way, but maybe we can't do that anymore, and sometimes prices need to go up, and we need to have difficult conversations. We need to discuss terms, agreements, or tenders come up, and you, as part of someone who has got that fixed mindset, they'll be like, well, our prices can't go up. My customer's not going to accept it. I can't have that conversation, So again, having that ability to identify these kinds of things early, it really, really can stunt someone's, growth and development as a salesperson, but equally just as an individual anyway, because that growth mindset could be taken into different forms of life. It's not as simple as all the things that we speak about sales. It's anything. We could always look to aspire to want to become better individuals in all the things that we do, and that could be even as as family people, better friends, and it's all about that ability to want to be better. And I think it's a really, really good point that you came up with earlier on.
I think it's as well, I agree with that. I think like they say by the age of 25, I think in females, I think it's 28 in males. Your brains are fully developed. So like your personality tends to be your personality. Like, it doesn't really change in terms of its hardwiring, but your behaviors can change. And you can change your behaviors. So having this mindset piece is a behavioral piece. And often I think as sales leaders, what we've got to do is really try to understand what's making that person have a fixed mindset. To your point now, which I thought was a really good point, prices go up, companies raise prices. If someone's demonstrating a fixed mindset around that, then that could be because they need some coaching and support and around to have that conversation to enable them to have a growth mindset. And what's causing the fixed mindset is that fight, flight, or fight response. And it's, can't do that. Can't do it. I'm not confident. I'm not confident in my ability. So we've seen, I've certainly seen in our business, people that might have had a fixed mindset really shift and get into that growth mindset piece. It can be coached, it can be developed, but it's through dialogue of really understanding what is causing that fixed mindset, what is causing that point of view, and coaching around it rather than telling someone, well, this is what you've got to do, because that doesn't work. Someone has to identify where they've got that fixed mindset and then work with a leader, colleague to look at another viewpoint, another way of doing something more progressive. Look, how do we move it forward? What can we do differently? But really good conversation. Anything you want to go through just before we wrap this episode up?
Really, really enjoyed that, Mike. I think the key thing is, with anyone to have this kind of mindset, we're looking for, dedication, right? We're looking for that wantingness and yourself, self-reflection to want to do better. And I think it was a really good conversation. We went through quite a few points, and I'm excited. I really enjoyed that, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for listening. Hope you really enjoyed that, and we'll see you all again soon.